Jeremy, I just want to say thank you so much for joining the In Their 20s podcast. This is, of course, the podcast with the best advice. We've been speaking with a lot of business professionals about, how they deal with uncertainty, what they did in their 20s in order to provide people my age, my peers, with a little better footing on what they need to be doing in their lives right now. So if you're ready, we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm ready.
Of course. So Jeremy, with all my interviews, I love to start at the beginning. So before we get into your career and venture, I'm curious to hear about your experiences at BYU. And I saw that you decided to get a master's degree as well. What led to that decision?
Yeah, so Brigham Young University undergrad, always kind of looked up to the schools local here, and went and didn't really know what I was going to do, as most undergrads have that experience. My father was an accountant, so I thought about doing accounting, but I didn't really want to do accounting, but he did accounting. Accounting at BYU is like top 5 in the nation, so it was really hard, and they were going to just, put you through the grinder. And I didn't love accounting, so I just ultimately just did business management, but I just knew I was going to get more education, so it wasn't the end. And from there, I went right to law school. So I went to Wake Forest University Law School right out of BYU. And that's where I really felt like I was starting to get the education that I wanted so I could do something that I wanted to do in the future. For me, education was about giving myself optionality so that when I did find that path, when I did find that passion, I had, a basket full of experiences in education to allow me to do what I wanted to do. So went to Wake Forest, and that's when the .com was going on. It was 2000 era, went there in 98, graduated 2001. And so that was kind of my generation, if you will, my experience there of going through a school was the .com era. And then from there, worked for a year and a half, 2 years, went to the University of Utah for an MBA.
So there are so many 20-somethings watching this right now, and they're in school and they're concerned. They're really concerned on if the things I'm studying right now in school, will I be using them down the line? Because I even, just graduated school back in 2020, and there were many classes that I took, and I would kind of consider whether or not I'd be using them in the future. Can you confidently say, there were any special classes during your college days or even during your post-grad, graduate school days that really helped what you're doing today, or also any routines that you developed during the college days that have really helped you propel your career today?
Yeah, I've got opinions about going to school. I have 4 children. We hire a large number of employees. And what I always say to those that want to know is I find, and I've seen this in a number of people that I've encountered with here at Assure and others, that going through college is the accomplishment. It's not so much of a certain class. It's not a certain degree. I've noticed many times, it's not 100% of the time, but many times that when someone goes through that experience of college, which is just, it's a grind, it's budgeting, it's planning, it's working in groups, it's just hard work, it's staying up late, it's having disappointments, it's having successes. When you get into the workforce, you now have a lot of those great experiences that you can contribute on teams, you can contribute to a company, you can think a certain way. And so I'm a big proponent of going to school to get that experience. I'm less, keen on go with this degree or take this class. And thinking back, there's classes that I enjoyed, oh, that was really interesting, but I don't really think there's a class where that was a turning point for me. That class, made all the difference for me when I got into the workforce. I will say for my career and my story, my law degree has been everything to me. And, I went to law school. I wasn't sure when or where I would use it. I wasn't keen on being a lawyer. I wasn't I'm going to be a trial lawyer. I'm going to go work at a law firm. And when I went to law school, I didn't love it. I didn't love the law. I didn't love the research. I did really enjoy learning how to think a certain way, how to do research, how to figure out answers. And, but I just knew I wasn't going to go to a law firm. And when you don't go to a law firm, going through law school is very painful, it's very long, and it's very expensive. So I wondered, when am I going to get the value for this? When am I going to kind of cash in this chip? I knew that I would. I just really felt like I would. I just didn't know when and how valuable that chip was going to be. And it turned out to be extremely valuable to me. I cashed it in pretty early in my career, and we can talk about that. But for me, it was about going through the experience that college gives you, far more valuable than any certain class.
Of course. No, I think that's really, really great advice. And I just think bottom line, 20 somethings needs to be very intentional, before they choose a major and before they choose classes, because, a lot of these things you will be able to use in the future, but it's just best to have a clear idea of, what your goals are in life, what you're passionate about. I think that can really help you get a concise view into the education system and what you should be pursuing. So you ended up pursuing venture though. I'm curious, when was the first time that you learned about what venture is, and what made you so interested in pursuing this?
I've always been an entrepreneur, even as a young kid. I remember coming up with schemes. I remember, selling lemonade. I mean, I was kind of a constant thing. It wasn't like I did lemonade once. I did it all the time. And I was always thinking of different ideas. And then I went to school, and then I continued to have ideas. I always had ideas. I'm an idea factory, if you will. And much to the chagrin of my co-founder, has to deal with all my ideas being thrown at her. And she gets to bad idea, constantly swatting it like gnats coming at her. And but I had an idea in college that I thought it might be kind of interesting. And I went to law school, and then it was the dot-com era, right? Venture, startup, all that stuff. So that's when I first started to understand and get into it and research it. And so I had an idea, and the idea was ringtones. So everybody, your cell phone, back in my day, cell phones did not have any special ringtone. It wouldn't play music. It wouldn't, do a movie line or anything like that. It was just the factory sent ringtone. I just thought it'd be really cool if you could download a ringtone. Because I remember I was sitting on my phone and Sprint says, "Hey, we have an update for your phone. Can we just send it to you?" So I'm like, "Yeah, send it to me," right? And they're on the phone. They're like, "Hey, your phone's been updated." And I'm like, "Wait, you can send packets of data to the phone?" And so this idea came to me about this ring idea. And so I wrote a business plan about it. And then I emailed it to all the VCs that I could find on the internet, right? Everything that you should do. I followed the playbook of what not to do. That was the very first time for me about venture-backed, venture capitalists, raising money, was when I had an idea, wrote a business plan, and then emailed it out to whoever I could find their email for.
We're going to continue the conversation, obviously, about venture, but I love that you brought up your co-founder. I know you tweeted a while back that you were very grateful for your co-founder.
Yes, I'm a little unique in that I married my co-founder, then we did Assure, and so it's my wife, and so it was a little bit different. But for me, the fact that she has those skill sets that I don't, and that has been everything for us. And then the other thing that has been everything for us is that she challenges me. And when you start a company, you need somebody to kind of say bull crap or I disagree, and really challenge ideas and not back down. When you're passionate, when you want to build something, when you have confidence about something, you need to argue the point, right? You believe something's going to be right or a certain way or need to go a certain path, and you should be passionate and you should argue it, but you also need somebody, I kind of call it, body check you, and not to be an adversarial way, but let's make sure we look at this at multiple angles and we really dig in to make sure this is the right decision. And so you have to be humble. You need to be someone that says, "You're right, I'm wrong, bad idea," or, "That was a great point." You need to really be interested in finding someone that's going to challenge you, challenge the ideas, challenge the business. And you need to be humble enough to say, "Yep, you were right." But you also have to find someone that you don't want to run over. You want somebody to really challenge you and that's going to stand up to you. And then the skill set, right? If you're really bad at marketing or financials or operations or whatever it is, I'm kind of laying out the things I'm bad at with that list. Then you need to find somebody that can really match you so that you have a complete, team that can really get a lot of stuff done. Those would be my pieces of advice.
I think that's a wonderful point that you made, just about not wanting to partner with someone that agrees with everything that you're saying, has the same mindset. You want to find someone that challenges your ideas. That's, what compatibility is, in creating a startup, with a co-founder, and creating a company, someone who can really help push you to the next level, and then also someone that you can help get to where they need to go. So I really, really love that breakdown there. So jumping back to your early professional career, I'd love to talk about the Utah Fund of Funds. You were the first hire at Utah Fund of Funds. This was a company where you guys raised over $120 million, invested in 28 other funds as well through this. Would love to go back to the point about you being the first hire. There are a lot of 20 somethings currently that are joining companies very early, especially with so many different exciting industries coming around Web3, crypto. There are many people I've interacted with that are the first hire, first few hires at their company. I'm curious your advice to standing out, when being that first few hire, and bringing immediate value so that you can create a long career with said company.
Yeah, so for me particularly, this is where I cashed in that law degree the first time. I've been able to cash it in a few times. I went to law school. I did not want to go to a law firm. As everybody knows from the history books, the dot-com era had a bubble and it burst. And when that happened, multiple people lost their jobs, but one of the industries that got hit very hard was the legal industry. Because it was venture capital and IPO and M&A, there was tons and tons of legal hiring going on in the country. And when the dot-com bust, they didn't want the lawyers they had, let alone new lawyers. And I was one of those kind of new entrances into the field, in the industry. So I couldn't get a job, but I wasn't really that enthusiastic either. And kind of plays to a point I'm going to make in a minute, that I'd go to these interviews and my heart wasn't in it. It was kind of like, I need a job. I want a job, I guess. And I should get a job. But I couldn't find a job. No one would hire me. No one would look at me. And even when I tried to not get a law job, they would just send me back. Oh, you have a law degree. I'll get you over to the legal department. No, I'm trying to just get a job anywhere. And so I had a hard time finding work, and felt like I needed an MBA, because I didn't want to go that traditional down the middle legal career. So I moved back to Utah. I was in California at the time that everything was going badly for me, and moved to Utah, went to the University of Utah, got an MBA. And about halfway through the program, the Utah Fund of Funds job posting came up, and I was super interested in it. And I applied, and this was the first time I realized what applying for a job that you really wanted felt like, because I'd done all those legal interviews, and I'm just like, my heart's not in it. And when this job came up, I'm like, I want this job more than anything. And I prepared, and my advice to people, and what I did was I'm like, this is mine. This is my job. And I read that posting, and I'm like, okay, I need to prove that I can do X and Y and Z. And I brought stuff. I was like, they're like marketing. I've got some marketing stuff from my MBA program. Legal, here's documents that I've drafted. It's like, there's no way you're not hiring me. And so I impressed them enough that they gave me that job. And that's where the legal degree is really what got that job for me, because it was very legal. We had legislation, we had policies and procedures. We were going to then invest in funds, which is very legal. There was going to be tons and tons of legal stuff. So I really cashed in my legal chip at that moment. And then once I got the job, I worked really hard, right? Whatever it took, I networked like crazy. I asked lots of people advice and help. And I just was going to make sure that I figured this thing out, and there was going to be no stone unturned to figure out how to figure this thing out, and was aggressive and passionate and trying to figure out how to build this thing and run this thing. And that's the advice I would give to any new individuals. And again, at Assure, we hire a large number of people from all different stages in their life. And I just love those individuals that are coming out of college that are hungry. I love those that actually come up to me and be like, hey, can I ask you a question? Can I take you to lunch? Can we go get a coffee? I know it's completely intimidating. But frankly, as a CEO, I like that. I like people that I see are here early and stay late. I like people that are, trying to come up with ideas and sharing their ideas. And, those are the things that get you, recognition, but the recognition is meant so somebody will mentor you, will give you opportunities, give you those chances so that you can grow. And it may be that you move on to another job shortly after joining this one, but if you really want to build a career and you want to have those experiences so that you can be an entrepreneur or be an executive or do whatever you want to do, using that time to talk to those around you, to explore different ideas and get the feedback from those that are around you, that's golden for you. That's golden.
Of course. And you like it when younger employees do that because ultimately you did it. When you were growing up as well. And as you just mentioned, a few things I want to break down there because you gave a lot of advice. Just want to make sure that a lot of this is getting, in our audience's head. So number one, there are so many 20 somethings that are throwing multiple lines out when it comes to the application process. They're applying to hundreds and hundreds of jobs. They're not doing proper due diligence on the application for each one. You kind of said flip it, find the ones that you think you could perform really well in, the jobs that you really, really want, and really understand those applications, front end and front out, really, really understand them well. So you can go into that interview being able to show why you are the valuable person for that role. And that includes bringing in past work that you've done, being able to communicate the skills and experiences on your resume clearly so you can show the company that they're really connected. So I really love that advice because I totally agree. It can be very overwhelming, applying to hundreds of companies and not really caring about, the company specifically. But if you find, a small group of companies that that you can bring value to and that you really, really want to zero in on, I think that's really good advice. And other advice that you shared as well is making sure that if you want to stand out, you're doing just that, having the conversations with the right people at companies, not being afraid, asking questions. I really think that's powerful advice for any 20 something, especially 20 somethings at larger companies looking to stand out. Ask questions. Those are really, really helpful ways to learn the business and not just, don't just look to speak to people whom are in your same department or maybe, have similar trajectory. I think it's great to diversify, talk to many different departments, many different people at the company, learn their roles, learn their responsibilities, and then you can kind of see how it's all connected and how you can bring more value to that said company. So let's talk about your company now. Assure, you just mentioned that you're hiring so many young people. I'm curious if you can kind of break down what led to the creation of this company, and specifically, what do you look for in younger employees?
Yeah. So at Assure, we do all the structuring for investors to invest into startups. And, the quick, less boring description, if you will, is individuals want to invest into startups. And if they want to pool their buddies' money together, then you have to have a structured vehicle. You have to have an LLC. When you do that, you're kind of opening this box of you need to do some documentation, you need to get a bank account, you need to do some filings, you need some taxes. All that can feel very daunting, and it has been for many years. But our story is that AngelList called back in 2013 and said, hey, we're seeing some movement in the marketplace. We would like to put forth this AngelList platform, but we need somebody to do all the work behind the scenes. Can you set up the entities? Can you do the taxes? Can you do the security filings? And we said, yeah, we'll figure that out. So my co-founder and I figured it out. And so today it's really kind of a few button clicks, right? So in our platform, you log in, you click a button, you get a bank account, an entity, your documents, right? You click another button, you invite a bunch of people, you click another button, you can kind of close the deal. So we've taken all that complexity and made it very, very efficient and doable and affordable. So that's what Assure does, is we basically make it available for the masses to invest into startup companies. And what we really love about it is that it now allows anybody, a 20-something-year-old, you land or anybody else, you don't have to be an accredited investor. You can set up deals. You can't invest in the deals, but you can set them up. You can invite buddies. You can get a carry on that. And we're seeing our clients in college, just out of college, first job, they're seeing deal flow, right? They're at a company and they're like, wow, this is interesting. I'm now learning something and I'm very passionate about this. And on Twitter and social media, and we're seeing people now can just come to Assure and set up entities and start investing in things that are passionate for them. And then that's great for those that are raising money, underserved, underestimated, minority-based businesses where in the past, I didn't go to Harvard, so I don't know anybody. Now you can it's so much easier for them to raise money. So that's kind of the broad spectrum of Assure. And how we got there was when I was at the Utah Fund of Funds, I was hired, I was 29 years old to do the Utah Fund of Funds. And they basically handed me some legislation and said, make us proud. And like everyone walked away. And, I networked, I asked questions, I dug in and I say young people today have so much more of the resources than I had, right? I had the internet, but it wasn't as expansive as it is now. There wasn't social media and all that stuff, but just dug in and figured it out. And as I built the Utah Fund of Funds, I was hearing things and learning things. And one of them was just like this structuring confusion and frustration in the marketplace. You either went into a fund or you went into a fund. And there wasn't this SPV option. There wasn't this collaboration option. There wasn't this community building option. And so I left the Utah Fund of Funds, tried some stuff, failed at a bunch of stuff. And then AngelList called and we figured it out. And so we hire a lot of young people in order to help us provide this service to our clients. Individuals come in, they're like, okay, what buttons do I push? Okay, why am I pushing that button, right? And we need people to help explain and assist in getting these deals closed, getting the money from investors into the bank account and then over into the companies. And then the companies give us updates and we have to continue to kind of assist with that. And we love young people for multiple reasons. One is they can work at Assure, which is, you don't need to have, we do have lawyers and accountants and all that stuff, but we have a big pool of people that have highly specialized skills and training and years of experience. But we also have a big pool of people that can just start in the industry. And many of the individuals that join Assure, like I love venture capital. I love startups. I love just trying to get into this industry. And venture capital is very difficult to get into. I actually tried to go that route when I was in my MBA program, and the doors all shut or actually never were open, right? You knock on the door, they never open it. And that's because the venture capital industry is very small. It's just, of all the people that are interested, there's only so many funds with so many jobs. Mm-hmm. And so I got denied on a lot of things that I thought would be interesting. And so we love to see young people be able to come into Assure, learn the business, learn the industry. And many of them go off to actually join firms or start their own thing, which is really fun for us to see.
Of course. Final question for you, Jeremy. You gave some clues there, but I kind of just want to be redundant for our listeners. For that young person that's looking to break into VC today, I agree. There are so many resources for young people to do that, different ways. There's no one way to really get into the venture capital space. But what are some really, really great skills of young capital allocators that you've seen in 2022? And just what is your advice when it comes to really breaking into this industry and leaving a mark? Because there are a lot of people, creating funds. There are a lot of young people looking to get involved in VC. But the ones that you've seen excel in it, what advice would you give to that young person?
Those that I've seen and that really excelled at it are those that can build a community, can build individuals that are interested in them. And what's great about today that we haven't had in the past is social media. Mm-hmm. And the internet allows you to actually build kind of a brand or a community around you. Those that I've talked to that say, I loved crypto, or I loved cannabis, or I loved healthcare, or I loved, SaaS, or whatever it is, and they really get passionate about that, you can learn a lot. And you can then, it doesn't take very much. It could take 6-8 months for you just to really be passionate about something. Signing up for blogs, listening to podcasts, following people on Twitter and LinkedIn. Before you know it, like you really know more than most anybody that you run into. And now all of a sudden you're in forums, you're at conferences, you're in conversations with the next generation of innovation, the next generation of startup companies. And people, if they understand that, would be interested to place money into opportunities to invest in that next generation. So you as a young person, right, you get passionate about something, let's just say it's crypto, and you know that space really well. Pretty soon, you have to convince or help other people know that you are knowledgeable, that you are that passionate. And you can do that by participating on, posts and commenting on people's blogs. And, and you just there's kind of a bit of a playbook. There's not just one playbook, there's sort of a playbook that you can follow to really start down that path. Before you know it, people are like, hey, do you want, or can we get into that company? You talked about the company, you talked to the founder. I'd love to get into that company, right? So now you have deal flow, you have access, and then you start to build a network of individuals who have money that are accredited. So when you want to get into venture capital, there's a couple ways to do it. One is go join a fund, which some can, but many times it's hard. Number two is launch your own fund, which again, hard, but can be done. Or three, you can start syndicating deals, which is much easier to do. And for there is like a three-legged stool. You need to be interested to actually do that. You're passionate. You want to build a community. You need to have deal flow, and you have to have investors. And when you have those three things, you call Assure, and we'll, we do your SPVs for you, but you have that network, you have that deal flow, and now you can combine those things. And again, you can be in college, you can be 20, you can be 15, you can be maybe probably not 15. You need to sign some documents. You got to be 18. Yeah, you can be a young person. You don't have to be 45 years old and have a full career behind you to get into the space. And that's new. Like that wasn't available to me or many of those even younger than myself. And so it's a great opportunity, a great time for anybody that's really interested in that. You can break in right now.
Of course. Well, Jeremy, I will be making that call to Assure when I am ready. As someone who's interested in breaking into VC, one day, I think that you shared a lot of great advice, not only for business professionals in their 20s, but again, people that are interested in venture capital. Really doing the work before you have the job is something that you mentioned a lot throughout this interview, asking a lot of questions. And of course, building a community, a shared sense of belonging around something that you're passionate about and others are also very passionate about too. So Jeremy, I just want to say thank you so much for joining the In Their 20s podcast. This was a wonderful discussion, hearing about your journey and your best advice for people in their 20s. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.